and welcome to the Majorly Undecided podcast. I'm your host, Kat Klaus. And in today's episode, I'm excited to bring you a guest who has worked hard to achieve that ultimate Hollywood dream. Now, if you remember from my first introductory episode, I told you a little bit about myself and how I fell in love with broadcast and production in college. I mean, I moved to Los Angeles without much of a plan, I'll be honest. I thought I was going to be, I was going to walk in and everything was going to fall into place. I moved there like someone in a movie with all my own dorm boxes, a college roommate, no job, and an apartment rented because an old friend from college who graduated a year ahead of us had just moved out. I thought I wanted to be a cinematographer. I actually thought I wanted this dream so bad that I put it on the mortarboard at graduation. I had this clapper, which is that device that does the clapping sound right before you see it in all the old movies, like, roll 'em, action, clap, right? I put that on the mortarboard that I had for college and I put in there cinematographer. But when I got to LA, the real world kind of hit me over the head immediately. I realized that I wasn't as passionate about cinematography as my peers were, like looking to enter into the business. I enjoyed making movies, but it wasn't really what I thought my passion would be. I started working on the business side of the entertainment industry. And during that time, I met a lot of professionals who were talented, working harder than most people, trying to get that big break. The goal was always to be a working actor or a working editor or a working screenwriter or a working anything in the entertainment industry. And while we constantly heard from others that it's networking and who you know what matters, I noticed something a little bit different during my time in LA. I saw actors put in a decade of work to get that miracle first break, like they were discovered on the street. In fact, at the talent agency where I worked, we used to tell actors the infamous Brad Pitt story, which is that he was in Hollywood for 10 years before he started getting any roles. 10 years before he got that first role in Thelma and Louise that kicked off the rest of his career. That persistence, that willingness to keep working, to hone in on your talent, to surround yourself with others who are also learning and being willing to learn yourself, was what created that Hollywood story that we were all familiar with. No one became famous overnight. In fact, I would say that the years I spent working in the industry were mostly so my country girl brain could wrap around the fast-paced and the thick skin I had to develop that was needed to survive. Today's guest, Mikki Daughtry, put in years of hard work to achieve her goal of becoming a professional screenwriter, author, and producer. She's a graduate of Brunel University who majored in theater and moved to Los Angeles. Mikki knew that she needed stability to follow her dream, so she took a full-time office job after college, and she moved to Los Angeles, still working that full-time job, and started writing at night and on the weekends, honing her craft. She joined a writing group that not only kept her accountable to her dream, but also allowed her to network with other writers and keep writing herself. She's the author of a New York Times #1 bestseller, 5 Feet Apart, and the screenwriter for the movie that followed, 5 Feet Apart. She's also the screenwriter of the 2019 horror film, The Curse of La Llorona. During her interview, she shares advice for students interested in writing professionally, as well as solid advice for anyone looking to work in Hollywood. Without much ado, enjoy today's interview with Mikki Daughtry. So tell me about how you learned to write screenplays.
So I got my theater degree from Brunel University in Gainesville, Georgia. And they didn't have a writing program there. And I wasn't necessarily, I knew from a young age, whether you want to be a writer or not. You're making up stories in your head. I spent most of my elementary school daydreaming and getting in trouble for not doing my work because I was staring out the window, making up stories in my head. And when I got to college, they had the theater program, which is one of the best theater schools, I think, in the Southeast for now is, and it's, oh, acting, oh, directing, all those things were very tempting to me, but I want to tell the stories and not interpret someone else's. I mean, I do want to interpret someone else's stories. I'm not saying I never would, but what I'm saying is, like, from my foundation, I found that I wanted to create them instead of interpreting someone else's creation, which, again, not knocking it. I do want to direct, very soon. But in the sense of my starting out, I realized that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper. And you have to start at the beginning. If that's what you want to do, then you need to create the story, and you need to build the world, and you need to breathe life into the character. So that was kind of where I started in theater school. And then, like I said, I had a full-time job for a long time and was trying to write and do stuff then. And then I came to LA and found this really amazing screenwriting salon. It's kind of because I didn't know how to write screenplays. I graduated with a degree in theater, and I would say, my main focus was, like, the classics. I like the Greeks, I like the Shakespeare, but the Greeks even more. Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, those are my favorites. To me, they were the original storytellers. And so when I got to LA, I needed format and style. Not style, that's not right. I had my own style already, but I needed how to format a screenplay, how to tell a screenplay visually, how to blah, 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 right? That's not novelizing something. It's not a play. A play and screenplay are very different. So when I got to LA, I came with my best friend Ariel, and she joined this group, this kind of like, it was a screenwriting salon. And she said, I think you should come here, because I had an idea. I had an idea for a script, and I didn't know how to start it, And so I joined this. It's called Twin Bridges. It's in Sherman Oaks, and Joe Bracker runs it with his wife Judy, and they are amazing. And going to that group, I met Tobias there, my writing partner, and I guess you could say we're successful. And we met there, and it was a very open, very giving room of people who are all trying to do the same thing, and at various levels of their of what they want to do. So when I was saying I was writing at night in my job, what I was doing was I was going there, to the writing group, and then I would do my work, and then I was writing for that. And also, it was very instrumental in the sense that I would sign up to read, so I better produce pages. And I feel like it really helped me, because it kept me responsible to doing what I wanted to do, in the sense that I could have been at home watching TV and then dreaming about writing a script, or I could be in Joe's group and have him expecting me with 20 effing pages in 2 weeks, and I better have them. Do you know? So that really, really, really set me on the road to having good writing practices. And you're writing all the time because someone is expecting you to show up with the pages. And if you don't, then you screwed the whole class, because you were supposed to read that, and it's just, and then it was really great because they give such good, notes. And so I learned a lot about the formality of the structure, and how to produce a screenplay that looks like a screenplay. And, the stories were ours, characters already, and everybody comes with a different, level and skill set. So that's kind of how I guess that's what you're asking. So I found them, and now we're doing it.
And I imagine that La Llorona, I can't pronounce it, which is awful, because I watched it and it's an amazing movie. It's an amazing story.
Thank you.
I imagine that wasn't your first script, though. You've written probably dozens and dozens of scripts.
No, I haven't. No. No. I had 3 full scripts before we were hired. And one of them is the one that's me. And then Tobias had a few of his own, but I only had 3. And one of them is now becoming All This Time. It's my novel that's going to be released in September. with Simon and Schuster. It's a YA novel. That was the one got us noticed at Austin and got our reps. So really, only 2 scripts. It happened pretty quickly.
But it was 10 years of work, you know,
It was.
like you said.
Yeah, and I wasn't writing. I wasn't writing I was working full time, so I wasn't writing, say, as quickly as maybe someone who doesn't have the day job that I had. They can write a spec script in 6 weeks. It was taking me a little bit longer, you know. But now I can write a script. I write a script in 6 weeks, you know, because it's my job.
What's your favorite thing about being a writer?
It depends on the day you ask, because sometimes you should ask what's your least favorite thing about being a writer.
That's my next question. So we could start there too.
We can start there. I can't say, but it's being a working writer. I'll tell you my favorite thing about it is I'm such a daydreamer, and I've always been such a daydreamer to the point where, like I said, it got me in a lot of trouble at school and I couldn't concentrate and I couldn't focus. That's what I get to do for a living. I get to sit in my head and make up stories and share them. The least favorite part is
It's hard.
No, it's not hard. It's a very easy answer. I can't say it because I'm a working writer. It's being a work. No, I love everything about it.
I would imagine it maybe. I imagine it's something along the lines of sometimes you can't write what you want to write.
Mm-hmm. Let me just clarify this. I am incredibly happy to write what other people want me to write. I'm perfectly willing to do it. I actually love the challenge of it. That's true. So it's, you know what, I'll just say it. And what I don't, it's not even that I don't like it. It's the uncertainty of whether they're going to like it. And with every single thing that a writer, I can only speak for me because I don't want to speak for anybody else. But with everything a writer produces, we are, or should be, in my opinion, putting our hearts and souls into it. And then it's the stress of wondering, am I enough for that? Do they like it? Can they see what I meant to do there? Is this the last job I'm ever going to get? That's like my biggest. I do say that a lot. I always feel like the next job is dependent on the job you're doing right now, and that's a lot of stress. But I appreciate it and I enjoy the challenge. So actually, that's not true. There's nothing I don't enjoy. The wondering and the waiting and did I do a good job? But it's all on me. It's not directed at someone else. My biggest challenge is always being better than I was the last time, you know? So I'm always in a constant race with myself, I feel like. And then I would say the industry itself tends to, whether it means to or not, and I don't think it means to, I don't ever think, we'll put hurdles in front of what could be a clearer track. But it all ends up to be a really good thing, because the more input you have and the more creative input you have from people who are smart and intelligent and who understand, you know, how to tell stories and what their viewpoints are, it's a sausage, you know, and it gets messy and it gets, you know, and it stings sometimes, but in the end, it can be it produces a really beautiful thing, right? So, yeah. Did any of that make sense?
Yes. That is, I think, the hardest question for everybody, is because you're like, it's like saying, what's your favorite movie? I don't know.
Well, it depends on the day.
There's so many. You are in a very hard industry, and a lot of what we hear about Hollywood and for writers is how almost impossible it can be. What advice would you have for students who are wanting to get into the industry?
Into writing specifically?
Mm-hmm.
It's not personal. If they don't like it, It doesn't mean they don't like you. But if they don't like you, sometimes you won't get the job. Like here's my biggest thing that I think that I try to tell people is it is your talent and it is your skill and it's your personality. Like people, what we found is they want to work with someone who will be fun, who will be accepting of criticism and notes without getting all butthurt about it, because no one wants to deal with someone who every time you cough their direction, they're going to cry. It's look at it as a job. I mean, that's in for my advice, which is very practical for a creative person, is you have to think of it as a job. And it's not, you're obviously, again, putting your heart and soul into it. And if you don't, you're not going to get the job, in my opinion. Like you have to be able to deliver the goods. But when the producers or the studio want something different, you also have to be able to pivot, and you have to be able to pivot well and happily pivot, not whine about it. You have to say, okay, well, they're paying me for this, and this is my version of this. Now I have to turn my version into their version. And that's when you come out with a really great product. I would say The Curse of La Llorona or 5 Feet Apart, any of those, it is a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and you have to know how to balance everyone and not take anything personally and not think because they don't like an idea that it's a bad idea. It's just not their idea, and they're paying you to do a job. So do your damn job. Not what a lot of writers will say. That I know because I've been on panels where they don't. But that's how I look at it. It probably came from having the need for the security and stability that I have, and working the full-time job and knowing that I'm not loosey-goosey. I don't like to wonder, like I said, who's paying my rent? I'm paying my rent. And to pay my rent, I need to do the best job I can for the people who are paying me to do that job and still make it creative and make people feel something.
I always think that you working, the full-time job probably gave you more skills to be more practical as a creative.
For sure. It definitely gave me more people skills. And I know one of the questions Kira had sent like a sample, and one of them was, what skills did you not know you would need? And it's took a lot of psychology classes for theater, and those come in handy in the sense that you're dealing with a lot of personalities and making everyone happy, but at the same time asserting yourself so that you're a part of the conversation and not the conversation's happening around you, because as the writer, you need to be a part of the conversation. Yeah, it's balance. It's all balance and not taking anything personally.
That's huge.
I think the psychologist would tell you, just because you didn't get the part doesn't mean you weren't good. It means you didn't get the part,
Not right now.
And then sometimes you're just not good, and maybe you should do something else. That's the truth of it. That's true. It's just, yeah.
I worked for a talent agency about 10 years ago, and that's very true. Sometimes you just need to find something else.
Yeah, I'm a actor. I went to theater school. There's like one role I can play, and it's me. And it needs to be someone with a Southern accent who talks like I do. And then I might be able to memorize the lines and pull it off. Otherwise, I need to be writing. And you find that if you want to be in a creative place, maybe it's not the right creative place, I would say that about myself. I would not get, I wouldn't cast me. I'd be like, that's cute. Go do the scenes. Go write the scenes.
What do you think are some of, and you've mentioned them a little bit, but what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that writers coming into the industry make?
Should I just say it?
Yeah.
Take the damn notes. Right now, if you're a new writer, I promise you, the studio and the producers know more than you do. They just do. And they know what they want, and they've been doing this for a really long time. Take the notes. Don't fight them. Find a way to take the notes and, like I said, make a sausage with who you are. And I see a lot. Don't walk into I can't say that though, because sometimes it works, I guess, but there's a lot of intractability. I'm sorry.
Okay.
there's a lot of intractability in creatives, I find, and they won't accept if something is not good enough or not. 10 people can say, it's just not right. And they're like, no, but my mom loved it. Well, nobody gives a about your mom. Your mom's not paying you to write this movie, you know? So what you have to do is you have to listen. And it happens a lot. And I feel like that's one thing definitely that producers and studios look for, is the malleability. They look for the ability to pivot and the ability to take the grenade and stand up to it and say, okay, got it. You hate it. What can we do to make it better? Not, are you crazy? Everybody else loved it. They don't give a shit. They're paying you for what they want. And there's a way to balance that. And I'm not saying you sell out creatively. I'm not saying you know, but you do have to understand that you're being paid to give them what they want. And with your voice, like they're not just going to hire, you know, Joe Smith from the street. And apologize to anyone with the name Joe Smith. I'm not talking about you, because it's quite a literal world these days. So let's just say, you know, MS, okay, or MD. Okay, you're not Mikki. Okay, let's say use me. Mikki Daughtry is. They're not paying Mikki Daughtry to type. They're paying Mikki Daughtry to give them what Mikki has that they hired her for. There's something about me and Tobias. When they hire us for a script, there's something we have that they want. That is true, because they could hire anybody just to type words on a page. So there is something that we're bringing to it, and there is something that they need from the writer. But we also have to have the ability to conform that into what they want it to be. And that is where I think that we generally do a good job, because we try to be as egoless as possible about it and not take it personally and not get too wrapped up in owning our vision for what something should be. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, is to not listen. If you send your stuff out to 17 managers and all of them pass for the same reason, please trust them that that's why people are passing, and check yourself, and don't be like, well, like I said, my mom thinks it's great. Good. Tell your mom to write you a fat check and make the movie. You know, and it could be very good, but if everyone's saying the same thing, and they could be saying something different, but many, many times they're saying the same thing. It'll sound like it'll be different words, but when you dig into it, you realize, oh, they're all saying the same thing. And you got to listen. That's my biggest, I would say my biggest advice to people trying to break in, or young writers or inexperienced writers, or check yourself.
On your craft.
Learn your craft and listen when people tell you. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's someone on the street that you walked up to and said, will you read this? And they're like, I'm kind of bored with it. That's your moviegoer. That is a person who may or may not go see your movie. Anybody who says, this is my opinion, anybody who says, I don't, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, what? Tell me everything you're about to say. I need to know. When it's like, because that's a clue. Something is not hitting. Something is not striking. And you have to be able to hear that as a writer, as a creative. In my opinion, you have to be able to take that in and say, okay, maybe that wasn't good enough. Maybe I need to give it a little more.
You had mentioned, I adore this because I was a classics double major. So I love the Greeks. Nobody talks about the Greeks, Aeschylus and Euripides, and like the OG theaters.
I love Shakespeare, but he was standing on the shoulders of Aeschylus.
100%. And he mentions the Greeks all the time. What were some of your inspirations for, a lot of people talk about, I want to write like Stephen King or like Spielberg, or, well, Spielberg's not a writer, but.
He is. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he totally. He is. I think we all trend towards that which we loved growing up. So I love high drama. I am an Aeschylus girl. Clytemnestra is my queen. Like that crazy, like she could do no wrong because she was so wildly crazy. But she also was damaged, deeply damaged when Agamemnon sacrificed her precious eldest daughter. You know, it's like this is allowed to be crazy. And it's just those peaks of the Greeks just went all in on the drama, and that's what I love, and I think that's what I bring to a lot of. And funny enough, Tobias and I are perfectly compatible because he's a comic book geek, and when you sit down and think about it, it's exactly the same. Comic books are very Greek tragedy, Greek drama, the peaks and the valleys, and as crazy as you can get because they use the fantastical element of the storytelling to give them the opportunities to tell these big crazy stories, as did the Greeks, right? So because they had their gods and goddesses who could fly and just smite a nation, like. So it's sorry. I'm waiting on him to start sawing again. Yeah, that's what I bring to it. I think is that high drama. And it's what I love. And so I think when you're going into, like I said, I can only speak for me. I think I most certainly gravitate to that which I grew up on, which is the high drama, the drastic stakes in a love story where everybody dies or everybody lives. It's all about love for me. Like every one of my stories, and I'll say this, and I've said it before, it begins and ends in a love story. There has to be, even La Llorona, it is a story about a mother's love for her children. It doesn't have to be a love story romantic. It can be a brother-sister love story. It can be a mother-child love story. It can be a father-son love story or a mother-daughter love story. There has to be something that we can, for me, sink our teeth into and hold on to the whole time. And that's kind of what I think I bring. That's what they look for when they hire me. They're looking for that little bit. And trust me, they'll tell you if they don't get it.
For a lot of students who are starting out, one of the biggest questions that I know that they're going to have is, where do you get your ideas? Where do you start?
That is a very personal, not that I won't tell you, not personal that way, not like, ooh, it's a secret. No, it's a very individual. I don't walk around, I'm struck with them. That's all I can say is it just like, ooh, there's something outside me that like taps me, or I will hear a conversation in my head between two people. I'm like, ooh, what's going on over there? Right. And mentally I go and check it. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Right. And I'm listening. I'm like, ooh, wow. And then I can build a whole world around that piece. And that's kind of how I get them. I can't tell you what all this time is about because it would be a spoiler alert, but that would be one where you would say, where did you get that idea? And it comes from, we can talk after it comes out if you want to. And, but it comes from, I do a lot of what ifs. What if that cell phone call, when the call gets cut and you can't hear anything and you're in the car by yourself, I don't go to, oh, I lost the call. I go to, oh my God, what if the whole world just ended and I'm the only one alive and everybody's gone?
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens to me when a cell phone cuts out. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm like, I wonder if I call them back, will they be there? And what if they're not? And then what if they're not? What if they're not? What if I am the only person left? Or what if I'm the only person who was never here? What if I was never here? And that's kind of how they steamroll for me. And it can be something as benign as a dropped cell phone call. It becomes this what if to me. And I definitely play in a what if sandbox. And I love it. And I will wrap myself in noodles trying to figure out, like, how would that work? Okay, let's say what if it did? How does that work? Oh, really? Well, how does that work? Okay, well, then where do you go after that? Oh, okay, you're stuck. Now what do you do? So that's kind of, and then generally when I have a what if or a spark of an idea, almost always, I kind of feel like I have, I sound like a crazy person, but I don't care. I kind of feel like if you could peel my skin back, there's a whole world in here that just keeps going. And it's contained in the ether somewhere outside of me, but inside of me. And I feel like every time I have a what if that matters. Sometimes I have these. Let me tell you, the cell phone thing didn't go longer than 5 seconds because nobody from inside me stepped forward to claim it. I'm talking really crazy, like a crazy person, but I may as well get it out there because this is what you're going to get, like when you get to know me. When I have a what if that matters, that has something to say, I will have someone inside me who steps up to claim it. Meaning, with all this time, okay, Kyle and Marley, that I won't reference 5 Feet Apart or because that wasn't my what if. That was Justin Baldoni had the idea. What if, because he had a friend, Claire, who died of CF, and she was very much present in the movie and helped us a lot with it. But the stories and the characters and all those were mine, and I created them and I created the story. But it was Justin's what if. Justin said, "What if you were in love with someone and you could never touch them?" And I'm like, I would like to know what that feels like. So I was incredibly blessed and happy that he chose us for the project. And then same with La Llorona, it was New Line's idea. What if? So we were hired for both of those. All this time is mine. So it is. I can't tell you what the what if is because it's a spoiler. But what I'm saying is when the what if came to me, it was like, what if? And then Kyle from inside of me stepped up and said, "That's my story. I will tell that one with you." And Marley said, "I'm going to help." And that's how it happens. And then they start, it's like flowers suddenly start go whoosh, and this world comes alive in my head. And it's all I can think about. It's all I can think about until I write it, until I get it down. And that's how my stories come. I will have a what if, and if it's important and it needs my attention, one of my inside people will step up and say, "Oh, that's mine. I've been waiting for that. That's me. Let's do that one together." If it's not important, like the cell phone thing, I think about it, I wait, no one comes, and I'm like, okay, well, it was just a dropped call then. Let's call them back. But if it were important, if there were something that one of my alternate personalities needed to expound on, they would come and say, "Hey, let's do that one. That's us. Let's do it."
No, I think it's a different perspective because a lot of writers will say, well, and I just kind of start this character and I start character building and then I start putting words in their mouth. But on another end, it's the character comes alive and they take it and they run with it. And then everything starts building from there.
That's what mine do. And if they don't, then I'm not the right person for the project. If they don't show up for me, even things that are based on another person's characters from before, they need to show up for me in a different way.
I was going to ask what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah. Oh my God. Every day is different. I'm really kind of out of sorts right now because I'm at home in Georgia. When I say home, LA is my home, but this will always be where I grew up. It looks like if I'm writing something, I usually go into a cave, like I disappear from life because I need to spend time with them and figuring that out. I have a handful of people who are my support group for sure, in the sense that I'm like, I will send them what I've got and what do you think? And say Ariel will say, I like it, but it's not you yet. I'm like, okay, well, something's missing then. Let me go back. And so that's what I look for. And then eventually I hone it down till their voices become very, very clear. And then the whole thing just kind of writes. But it's almost always a couple of false starts where I try to impose myself too much. And my technical ability, I'm like, oh, well, this should happen here and this should happen here. And it's like, no, we tell you what happens. You need to just shut up and type. So that's kind of when I finally give in to that, that's when I'm able to flow. And that's when the script just takes on a life of its own. And then what happens is you give it to whomever you're writing it for, and they go, I don't know. I don't know about this. And what you can't do is go, how dare you? This is my heart and soul. You have to go, okay, well, tell me what's missing and tell me where we're not merging. So that goes looping all the way back to our earlier conversation. So if I'm writing, I'm working and it's really all I can do. It's hard to focus on other things when I'm trying to just be in there and submerge myself in the world that I'm trying to write and create. But because it is a business, I do have to be a bit of a split mind about it. And for me, it's really hard to get back on track, which is still why very often I write at night. Still, I will use it's almost like a habit that became cemented in my working for a living before I was doing this for a living. And it became cemented in the sense that those hours are my work hours. So I will get up and I will do emails, do my walks, do whatever I do, like go to the post office, the mail, the bank, blah, 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 do emails. If I have to watch a movie for something, I will watch the movie. If I have to read a book for something, I'll read the book, and then at night I settle down and try to shut all that out and go back into the world of where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, that's kind of what a day looks like. And then when I'm off, when I'm finished, I don't know what the hell to do with myself. I will go see my goddaughter when I can. Quarantine's kind of put the kibosh on that a little, which is killing me and breaking my heart because I can't see her. But that's usually she's where I run to. Like as soon as I get a break, I'm like, Fifi, got to go see Fifi because she's my little battery, like she keeps me tethered to this world in a way, because I can go see her and everything goes out of my head and I don't, she's just so she's 3, right? Or she's about to be 3. So she doesn't understand any of the complexities yet, which is nice because she's just doing what she does. So that's what I do when I have a day off but it's, and then I really just roam around like a crazy person looking for, because suddenly this is out of my head and I'm like blank in a way. Which scares me. So then I go making up other ideas and searching for my next what if.
I think that's all my questions. Is there anything that you want to share for students that we haven't covered?
I want to say, if you want to do it, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Don't, if you think you're not good enough, don't let that stop you. But do accept the opinions of others. Accept the opinions of your teachers and your leaders and your producers and your studios, and they're going to have something to say. And don't throw that instinct. The instinct, I think, is to defend and to push back against criticism. Don't do it. Let it in. Sucks sometimes, but let it in because it will make you grow and it will teach you what other people are looking for. And you may have something very, very special that you can offer, but they are not going to hear it if you don't hear them. And that's my biggest advice.
That's great advice. It's great advice.
I hope so. I try to live by it. I check my ego all day long, or it's checked for me.
Thank you so much for this interview. This has been so much fun. I'm really excited to share this with all of our students. So
anytime. And I am happy to, whenever you guys need anything, just let me know.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. I want to thank Mikki for sharing all of her wisdom, advice, and her unique story. I want to say, too, to all of our students and listeners out there, if you're not familiar with any Greek tragedies or comedies, the old classics, I highly recommend you start looking into it because those stories are incredible. I can nerd out all day long with Mikki about the Greek classics. If you have a question or a career path that you want to see featured on the podcast, don't hesitate to email us at info@majorlyundecided.com. You can also follow us on Facebook with our Facebook and Instagram page, Majorly Undecided, And as always, you can find more resources, including our free quick guide to deciding your major, on our new and improved website, majorlyundecided.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.